They celebrated without me. The day I walked away from the family I gave my life to. I didn't think the hardest moment of my life would arrive quietly, without shouting or drama. It came in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and loneliness, when I realized my family had chosen a party over my presence, my pain, my life. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow beep of a machine keeping rhythm with my heart, I understood something that broke me in a way nothing else ever had. I was alone, not because I had no family, but because the people I called family had decided I was no longer a priority. My name is Mira. I am 56 years old, a mother of two, a wife for most of my adult life, and for decades, the person everyone relied on, without ever asking how much weight my shoulders could carry. I was the one who woke up before dawn to pack lunches, who stayed up late waiting for everyone to come home safely, who remembered birthdays, anniversaries, school meetings, medical appointments, and emotional storms that no one else seemed to notice. I used to believe that this was love, that being needed meant being valued, that sacrifice would someday return to me in the form of care and gratitude. I was wrong. The first warning signs came quietly, the way most painful truths do. After my husband passed away 7 years ago, something shifted. Not all at once, but slowly, like a house settling into cracks after an earthquake. My daughter Ria became busy with her own family, her own responsibilities. My son Ankit moved to another city for work and called less often with each passing month. I told myself this was normal. Children grow up. Lives move on. Mothers learn to wait. Then came my son-in-law, Vikram. Vikram was charming in the beginning. Confident, well-spoken, admired by everyone. He knew how to fill a room with his presence, how to make people laugh, how to turn any gathering into something that revolved around him. Slowly, without anyone noticing, he became the center of our family universe. Decisions were made around his schedule. Celebrations were planned to suit his preferences. Even conversations bent in his direction. I didn't mind at first. I told myself that adjusting was part of love, that welcoming a son-in-law meant making space. But somewhere along the way, I began to disappear. It started with small things. Family dinners scheduled on days I had doctor appointments. Phone calls returned late, or not at all. Important news shared in group chats where my messages went unread. I laughed it off. I told myself I was being sensitive. Aging mothers often are. Then my health began to fail. It started as fatigue, the kind that sleep doesn't fix. Then dizziness. Then pain that wrapped around my chest like a tight rope. My doctor warned me to take it seriously. Tests were scheduled. Medications prescribed. Rest advised. I informed my children. They sounded concerned, at least over the phone. Promises were made. Visits discussed. I waited. Weeks passed. One evening, as I was preparing a simple dinner for myself, my phone buzzed with a message in the family group chat. It was an invitation. Vikram's promotion party. A big celebration. Music, guests, decorations, the works. The date caught my attention immediately. It was the same day as my hospital admission for further tests. I typed a message slowly, my fingers trembling more from emotion than illness. I reminded them about my hospital stay. I didn't ask anyone to cancel the party. I didn't demand attention. I simply said I would be alone and scared, and it would mean a lot if someone could be with me. The message was seen. No reply came for a long time. Finally, Ria responded. She said she was sorry, but everything was already planned. Guests were invited. Vikram's boss was coming. It was important for his career. She promised to call me from the hospital after the party. Ankit sent a short message. He said he would try, but he had already booked tickets to attend the party and couldn't get time off work for another trip. I stared at the screen, reading the words again and again, hoping I had misunderstood them. hoping there was a hidden sentence somewhere that said, "We will be there for you." There wasn't. The day arrived quietly. No one came to pick me up. I took a taxi to the hospital, holding my bag close, feeling smaller with every step. At the registration desk, the nurse asked who would be staying with me. I hesitated, then said my daughter might come later. She smiled politely, the way people do when they sense a lie but don't question it. The hospital room was cold and too bright. Machines hummed softly. Time stretched in strange ways. Hours felt like days. My phone stayed silent except for occasional photos posted in the family group chat. Smiling faces, decorations, a cake with Vikram's name written in bold letters. Everyone looked happy. At some point, a nurse came in to check my vitals. She asked gently if I was okay. I nodded because crying felt like admitting defeat. Later that night, as pain tightened its grip on my chest and fear pressed against my ribs, I realized something with heartbreaking clarity. If I were to disappear tonight, the party would still go on. The music would still play. The cake would still be cut. That realization changed me. I was discharged 2 days later with instructions to rest and follow up with specialists. Ria came to see me briefly, guilt flickering in her eyes like a candle about to go out. She brought leftover sweets from the party. She talked about how successful the event was, how proud she was of Vikram. She didn't ask how scared I had been. After she left, I sat alone in my house, surrounded by walls that had once echoed with laughter and arguments and love. I looked at old photographs, birthdays, school functions, family trips. I saw myself in every picture, always in the background, smiling, holding things together. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided my entire life. What about me? That night, I made a decision that took me months to fully understand and accept. I decided to choose myself, even if it meant being misunderstood, even if it meant being called selfish, even if it meant walking away from the only life I had ever known. I didn't announce my decision. I didn't argue or accuse. I began quietly preparing. I sold a few things. I organized my finances. I looked for a small place in a town where no one knew me as someone's mother or mother-in-law. When my family noticed changes, they brushed them off. They were too busy with their own lives to pay attention to mine. The day I left, I wrote a letter. Not to blame, but to explain. I told them I loved them, but I could no longer live as an afterthought. I told them that choosing myself was not an act of revenge, but an act of survival. I wished them happiness. I asked them not to look for me. Not because I didn't care, but because I needed space to heal. Then I closed the door and walked away. The first months were the hardest. Loneliness doesn't disappear just because you choose it. There were nights when silence screamed louder than any argument ever had. There were mornings when I reached for my phone instinctively, then remembered there was no one waiting for my message. But slowly, something else began to grow. I learned to cook meals just for myself, not worrying about preferences or complaints. I walked in the mornings, feeling my body grow stronger. I joined a small community library and started volunteering. I met people who didn't know my past, who listened to my stories without expecting anything in return. For the first time in decades, I felt seen. My health improved, not miraculously, but steadily. With proper care, rest, and peace, my body responded. My mind followed. I laughed more. I slept better. I started writing, pouring years of unspoken thoughts onto paper. Months later, a message arrived from Ria. She said she missed me, that things felt different without me, that the house didn't feel the same. I read the message many times. I felt the old pull, the instinct to return, to fix, to fill the gaps again. But I also felt something new. Strength. I replied honestly. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't ready to come back. I told her that love should not require disappearance. I told her that if we were to have a relationship again, it would have to be one where I mattered too. She didn't reply immediately. Time passed. Life continued. I celebrated my birthday quietly with new friends who remembered without reminders. I spent holidays doing things I enjoyed instead of fulfilling expectations. I learned that peace is not loud, but it is powerful. A year later, I received another message, this time from Ankit. He apologized. Not vaguely but specifically. He acknowledged the hospital day, the party, the neglect. He said he hadn't realized how much he had taken me for granted. I cried when I read it. Not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time, someone saw the truth. We started talking slowly, carefully. Boundaries were set, visits discussed, not assumed. Love was offered, not demanded. I did not return to my old life. I built a new one, and I invited my children into it on my terms. Sometimes people ask me if I regret leaving, if it hurt too much, if family should always come first, no matter what. I tell them the truth. Family should be where you feel safe, valued, and loved. When it stops being that, choosing yourself is not abandonment. It is courage. The day my family chose a party over my life was the day I learned the most important lesson of all. You can love others deeply and still decide not to disappear for them. You can walk away without hatred. You can choose peace without guilt. And sometimes, leaving is the only way to finally come home to yourself.